Hello everyone, I'm Cass with College of Lore.
I am the Penitent with College of Lore.
We're here to talk to you about God. Do you guys have a moment to... I'm not sorry for that joke, I think I'm funny. Do you guys have a moment to talk about the 5e Pantheon? I hope so, because that's what we're talking about in this video. This is an episode of the Academy where we're talking about gods. We're talking about the Faerunian Pantheon, we're not gonna touch on the other ones, really. There are a ton of other gods in other pantheons. They're the most relevant one to 5e as a general rule. So that's what we're going to touch on here. We're going to go over a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about all the gods. This might become a two-part episode, so we'll see if this is what goes up both times this week.
Yes. If this is part 1.
If this is part 1, it will be part 1.
If it doesn't say part 1, then
it's
you'll have a different
whole
one.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. So, fundamentally, the Pantheon it's the Faerunian Pantheon. It's a bunch of gods.
Specifically the Forgotten Realms Pantheon.
Yeah. They're a bunch of guys that are super powerful because they're gods, and they vaguely function together. Some of them like each other less than others. Some of them get along, some of them don't. They vaguely work together, especially in times of true crisis. They'll generally unite. Beyond that, they kind of do their own stuff sometimes. It's the Faerunian Pantheon because it's based on the continent of Faerun, which is in the 5e setting. So that's why it's called that if you couldn't tell, if you couldn't guess.
There'll be some
they contain
gods...
multitudes.
Some gods missing from this, just to get them out of the way immediately. Tiamat.
Yep, there are a bunch of, specifically, race creature type specific gods.
Tiamat, Bahamut, Corellon, and Lolth.
Is Asmodeus on this one?
Asmodeus is not on this?
Yeah, because Asmodeus is not in the Faerunian Pantheon. As much as I kind of think he should be, he's not.
Yes.
I thought he was for a while, but he's not. Because he's the Lord of the Hells.
Yes.
Which is technically its own thing. They're the biggest Pantheon, I think. At least the biggest that's, official.
Oh...
Is Greyhawk?
Greyhawk gets up there.
Yeah.
I don't know if Greyhawk or them are bigger.
Yeah, but this is the 5e one.
Yes.
If you're looking at basic 5e setting, this is probably the one you'll hear about most. There's a bunch of cool guys in here. Some of them are, way less known than other ones and way less used, but all of them are cool. Polytheism is great.
Yes.
Most D&D settings have polytheism in them. Because it's nice to have options when you're making a cleric and stuff.
If I was playing in a game with monotheism, I would feel a little weird.
I would not do that.
Yeah.
Is what I would do. Yeah, so the Pantheon, the Faerunian Pantheon, the Forgotten Realms Pantheon, whatever you want to call it, their whole thing is they make stuff happen in the world. They're the big guys. They're the big in-charge guys. They are usually considered the driving force behind most of the changes happening in the world to some degree or another. Obviously, there's mortal squabbles and war and stuff, but fundamentally, if something is happening in the whole world, in the whole universe, the gods are up to it. They're in the way, they're involved, they're doing stuff there. They give clerics and paladins their powers.
Not all paladins, but...
No, not all paladins, but most paladins.
Yeah.
They have a bond with them, at least. They give clerics their power. Clerics obviously get domains based on what god they're attuned to. It is hard not to have your life be affected by gods in some way. Really, in any setting. An atheist in the D&D setting is not the same as an atheist in this in our real world.
If you don't believe in gods in a D&D world, you're insane.
Yeah. An atheist in a typical 5e setting is more, I don't think they're special, or I don't think they're deserving of worship, or I don't have a fundamental amount of respect for them that most other people have. It is not, I don't believe they exist, unless you're literally insane, actually. Because there is proof in cleric existence, basically, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And people have seen them.
In that you don't think they're worthy of praise, not that... Yeah.
You can look at a god and be like, okay, you fuck up same as anybody else, you're not special, you're no more important or valuable to this world than mortals just because you have more power than them. You can look at it that way, but to look at a 5e god and say, you don't exist, that doesn't make a ton of sense. So that's one of the things that we definitely keep in mind. I've seen a lot of talk about atheist characters in 5e, and I really think there's no logical way to make them not sound crazy if they just don't believe in the gods straight up.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's hard to not have your life be influenced by that existence in some way, whether it's you've grown up in a city where there are temples to lots of different gods, even. You may not have ever had to even directly interact with an acolyte or someone at a temple or a cleric or something like that. But they exist, and that existence shapes the entire realm. So your life has been changed and altered, and it is different than it would be if they didn't exist as a character just by being in a world with them. There's not a set way to use gods. You can use them as people who are genuinely just, they don't care about the world, they don't care about anything other than their followers. You can set it as they don't really care about the world at large at all. They see themselves as kind of this entirely different kind of divine force that they don't care about the people, they only care about the world, the creation aspect, the power that they have. I don't like playing them that way. I like for gods to be deeply, deeply involved, because they should be. If there is a world where they are so deeply connected and relevant, I think there should be a lot of movement and interaction in that way. So you can have a god be anywhere from entirely apathetic to most of the world, all the way to directly working with the party in a huge way, which we have done in several games. You can also have them be, some of them, or even all of them if you really wanted, you could have them be evil. Truly, I mean, there are evil gods already, but you can have them be the big bad of your campaign. You can do that. We've done that in multiple games.
Critical Role does that.
Yeah, Critical Role does that. There are a ton of cool gods that you can do with that. Asmodeus, Tiamat. There's a module about killing, like, an acolyte, avatar of Tiamat. Go crazy. Make it Tiamat herself that you have to defeat because she's gonna kill the world or whatever, Yeah. You can do a ton of stuff with that. There's no wrong way to use them necessarily. There are definitely ways I prefer. But that does not mean that they're the only way.
No, these are just suggestions. You do you.
Yeah. Your level of involvement that the gods have in your campaign is obviously entirely up to you. This is just how I feel about them. I'm gonna go off.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let you...
Yeah, you just let me talk about this. I have a huge, overarching headcanon, I guess, is what you would call it, about godly morality. And this is actually something that gets touched on in our actual play a little bit. In one of the characters' upcoming conversations that I think you'll see this week. I think you should see it this week. As this goes up. So basically, how I view godly morality is deities are shaped by their followers' perception of them. And I'm going to talk about this the same way I talked about it in the campaign, which is everyone is shaped by other people's perception of them, and gods are not set apart from that experience. Fundamentally, even a normal person, if you get told that you are a certain way enough, it gets drilled into your head. It's why there's a lot of internalized issues with minority communities. It's why it's so easy to hate other people and yourself, just fundamentally because if you get told something enough times, it's gonna drill itself into your head. Not to trauma dump on this channel, I have been in abusive relationships in the past, and I, to this day, blame myself frequently for a lot of the things that I've been put through, and I still hold on to a lot of behaviors that they kind of instilled in me and basically told me I had, to the point where I started to imitate them. You are shaped by people's perception of you. Some people more than others, some people are more resistant to that, or just don't care very much about what other people think about them, genuinely. And that's great, and you can run some gods that way. In fact, we do. I have a couple of gods specifically that I run as very clearly they try their hardest to defy those expectations and hold on to what they originally became gods for. But that's something that I'm going to touch on, is 5e gods, at least in my opinion, well, first of all, I run them as originally all having been mortal. And having, I don't know how much of that is canon.
True for some gods, not true for...
Yeah. So, I run all gods as having been mortal at some point and being successors to other gods. When those gods died, or whenever some cosmic power, maybe an extreme amount of magic, or whatever it be in some cases, just a truly intense desire to make change, gods ascended from mortalness to godhood.
Now, there are some, like Lathander,
yeah,
who are so old, so ancient, that if they were mortal, they've long since forgotten all of that.
And there are some gods who forsake it deliberately in order to serve their followers better, or to fit that mold of what their followers see them as. But this is where it gets into how their followers see them. In my setting, in my play style of gods, they become gods for a reason. They're chosen for a reason, and while their domains, especially with evil gods, I do this. While their domains may be viewed as evil, they often don't become deities expressly to be evil. A great example of that, and this is, we'll go into more of how I run specific gods later, but this is one that I really, really strongly, I feel very strongly about this, is Shar, the goddess of loss. And I have run her for a very long time as she is canonically neutral evil. I run her as this kind of chaotic, very emotional force, very deeply connected to humans because her domain is so present in humanity, mortal existence. She is the goddess of loss not because she takes things away from people, but because she is the patron deity of people who have experienced great loss and great tragedy in their lives. She became a deity because, in my world, because she experienced great tragic loss and has continued to experience that as she continues to connect with mortals and eventually see them die. And she considers that part of her domain and part of her duty as a deity, and she is viewed as evil mostly because people associate her with taking things away. And because when she appears to people who have lost things, sometimes it's very blunt, sometimes it's very direct, you know. Yes, this person is dead and they are not coming back and you have lost them and that is my domain and that is how it is. And sometimes she appears to people and just says it like that. But she is also one of the few gods that I run as not being terribly influenced by others' perception of her because she has held so strongly and interacted with the mortal world so frequently that she can kind of hold to what she originally thought of herself as.
I believe we had at one point pegged Bane as a former revolutionary.
Yes, that is another one I was going to talk about, yeah. So we have run Bane as basically a former revolutionary fighting against tyranny, which obviously his main domain is tyranny and order and control. We have run him as basically, he opposed tyranny and wanted to fundamentally erase it from existence. And he became the god of such things specifically to reshape how that sort of thing was viewed. Specifically to dictate to people what kind of power should be held. I'm maybe not even initially a god of tyranny or the god of tyranny. Maybe he was initially ruling over power and control, but not in such a dark way. And then because of follower influence and follower belief of maybe the god before him, that he succeeded, you would see him kind of slowly be shaped into this much darker, much more vengeful, tyrannical god, because that was how he was viewed. Because if someone tells you enough times that you are something, you will start to believe it and you will start to embrace and encompass it. And especially when you have so many people all over the realm, all over the multiverse, looking at you in this way, And especially when you're, instead of just being perceived by these people, directly tied to them and influenced by them as much as you influence them, of course that's going to impact and influence how you act and how you are seen and how you see yourself and how you do things. And this goes for good gods, too. There are plenty of gods that are traditionally good that may only be that way, or at least be as good as they're presented to be, because people see them that way. I mean, honestly, Lathander is a great example of that. You can play him, obviously, the way he is written, as this wonderful, basically Christian god analog of kindness and light and renewal and love and all of this good stuff. But fundamentally, you could also play him as a person who tries to keep order in the Pantheon and tries to keep things steady, and is basically a normal person who is just viewed by people as this all-good god. And maybe that's taking a toll on him. Maybe that's weighing him down and making him feel like he has to control the rest of the Pantheon because he has to be the upstanding, morally correct god, because that's how people see him. Which is a really dynamic, interesting way to run a very, very good aligned god, is this extra pressure on them to behave in a way that, when they were once mortal and they're still people, it's not, no one's perfect.
He can also be an excellent straight man, basically someone who is way less chaotic.
Yeah. In a world where other gods are constantly warring with each other and constantly causing conflict, just because of their domains clashing or because of their personalities clashing, Lathander can be the one to keep things in place, and keep things kind of steady and stable. But I'm going to TLDR that whole thing and basically say, I like to put gods as, fundamentally, they were normal people and they are still people. They are not all-powerful, all-knowing beings. They are very powerful and they know a lot, but no being is perfect, and that includes the Pantheon, that includes gods in the Pantheon. They are deeply, deeply influenced, for the most part, by their followers, and if their followers see them as evil, or see them as their goals potentially aligning with the evil goals of a majority of their followers, they're going to fall in line with that, sooner or later, the vast majority of them, because they are so deeply influenced by and connected to their followers. And it's more than just a passive perception of someone being a certain way. It's a direct influence. Gods need mortals as much as mortals need gods, because they're nothing without their followers. Mm-hmm. A god without followers, in some of the things I run, is basically a dead god. If no one else believes in this god anymore, if no one believes they're a god, or worthy of being a god, they may just stop being one or even cease to exist entirely, because they have been basically stripped of their power by the followers, kind of incidentally, almost. But that is kind of my thoughts on godly morality. It's something I've written a lot about. I've kind of built a lot of that in my own stories. It's very important to me. So obviously that may be entirely different for your campaign, but that is what I see the Pantheon as being, and how they're influencing blah 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 blah. And obviously, there are so many depictions of gods that people have gone through over time. You can kind of write them however you want. My view is my view, mostly because everything else that's been written about most gods is literally entirely all over the place. Especially for some gods that have been used since older editions, or have been adapted up.
Old Art of Gods is really funny. Lolth, who's not in this Pantheon, but Lolth is a really good example of a really silly-looking old depiction.
Yeah. And things change. That also is something I play into with my my little theory, my little thoughts on gods. The idea that their physical forms change as people start to perceive them differently. Basically, they're so deeply influenced. It's just, it's intrinsic to who they are. I'm gonna stop, harping on that point now.
A bunch of different people have written these gods, so it's hard to pin them down personality-wise.
As one specific thing, yeah.
One thing I love doing is having relationships between gods.
Yeah. Whether romantic or friendship or enemies.
Yeah, rivalrous.
Enemies to lovers.
Or, I don't know how many times in canon Lolth and Asmodeus have interacted, for example.
Probably not very many. But in the actual play we're doing, they are the two parents of one of the characters who is a demigod.
Not, by the way, having a relationship like that.
No. It was the result of a power bleed, which is another thing that we have kind of headcanon in our own games. That's
actually canon.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I don't know anything. I don't actually know a ton about the pantheons normally. I decide in my brain. But yeah, they're the offshoot of two gods fighting a bunch.
Yes.
Having a clash, and then power springs out from that, and they made a baby by accident.
Yeah, it can make gods or demigods.
Yeah. And in this case, it made just a little demigod who is trying so hard, Ruby, my beloved.
Yeah. As far as all this, I would make your own depiction of the gods, as opposed to trying to pin down what the books tell you about them.
Yeah. The books are so deeply convoluted, and there's so many things that have been written over such a long period of time. Make your own stuff. We're not super gonna talk about the direct canon depictions of gods. It's dry sometimes, and it's confusing other times, and kind of the point of our channel, and especially the point of stuff like this, is talking about how we take what's written and we change it and adapt it for our world. We will talk about, and we're about to kind of get into the section where we talk about the gods. We'll tell you their canon alignment domains. You'll figure out the base just that you can look this up if you want to.
Yes. You can look up...
if you want more details. You can look on their Wikipedia pages or just any, article written about them.
Yeah. You can look up what their alignment is, how they function, their base relationships, but we have our little headcanons for these guys.
Yeah. We have our own little theories.
So, before we break into this, I find it pertinent to point out, these are entirely headcanons?
Yeah, this is... the vast, vast majority of this is not written in any source material. So bear with us. If that's not your vibe, obviously you don't have to finish watching this video, but hear us out, because I think a lot of it is pretty cool, not that I'm biased or anything.
But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna run through all of the Forgotten Realms Pantheon, how we headcanon them.
Right, and we're gonna go in alphabetical order, which starts with RL. Who is the neutral evil goddess of winter. She's the newest god, which I believe is just true.
Yes, if not canonically the newest, one of the newest.
Yeah, one of the youngest gods. Definitely still finding where her allegiances are in the way we play her. We've kind of spun her as being connected to a bunch of different gods depending on the thing.
Yeah, I think anytime there's a new god, there are power plays to get that god on your...
Yeah. In your corner, basically.
Yeah. Imagine if... We've kind of talked about how there's a council of gods, especially within their own pantheons.
Yep.
And how everyone kind of sees a new god as someone to get into their clique, such as it were.
Yeah. So Auril is kind of often used as that kind of... people want to win her over. Which obviously greatly influences the perception of her. So we usually play her as still kind of trying to figure out where she belongs, where she fits in. We've written her as connected to all sorts of people. We've portrayed her under Shar's wing. Shar is a deeply important god to me, if you couldn't tell. Because I resonate so deeply with the idea of great loss.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of very attached to her. But yeah, that's kind of Aurel's thoughts. Some of these we definitely have a lot more theories on than others. Azuth is the lawful neutral god of wizards. We kind of run him as a much older god, very kind of boring.
We portray him as like a Gandalf type, an old wizard.
Yeah, this very
old wizard.
Old, wise, knowledgeable, extremely knowledgeable. Because Mystra is basically the god of magic, we often play him as kind of a very quiet but very dedicated ally to her. Because wizards and magic obviously go together pretty well.
Kind of this quiet supporter of, take a step back and let her lead, let her speak, but...
Yeah. Bane, who we talked about a little bit, lawful evil god of tyranny. Obviously I said we run him as very heavily affected by his followers. You can run him differently. He is a very powerful, conquering, driving force. He's one of the most widely worshipped evil gods, just kind of as a general thing.
There are a lot of cults to Bane, a lot of cultists to Bane. Even if your Bane isn't evil, a lot of those cults will be.
Yeah. We accidentally made him kind of a goofy guy. We were playing a game once, and it kind of stuck, where he's basically a himbo.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing. It doesn't make any sense canonically, but it's stuck in our brains. So, it's
Bane is a himbo in our brain now.
Bane is a himbo, and you can't change my mind. Beshaba is the chaotic evil, goddess of misfortune. This is one that I kind of play similarly to Shar. Doesn't inflict misfortune, so much as she is drawn to it and deeply connected to it and tied to it. I would often run them as kind of sympathetic to each other, if often opposed in the way they approach it. She's great for edgy people. She's great for edgy followers, people who want to make other people suffer. So obviously she's also a pretty good choice for having being heavily affected by her followers. Sorry guys, I forgot how to be a person for a second.
It's okay, so did most of these gods.
Yeah. Baal, is that how you say it? Baal?
Baal.
I don't know. Bhallaal. I can't spell out loud at all. Neutral evil god of murder. He's kinda evil. It's hard to spin a god of murder as not super evil, admittedly.
One thing I do like is, in his life, him being a murder victim.
Yes, which is kind of cool. Usually he's too evil to kind of use for much else.
Yeah, I imagine he's, like, off in the corner of the Pantheon, kind of just...
brooding and planning things and scheming.
I imagine him as someone who barely speaks.
Yeah. Shantea, neutral good goddess of agriculture. There are so many nature gods and gods that have similar vibes.
Yeah.
She's really cool. She's kind of niche in my mind.
There are gods we mentioned later that are more useful. Agriculture is such a weird...
It's such a very specific domain. So yeah. There's a lot of niches there, but it is niche. Cyric, chaotic evil god of lies. You can play him, we like to play him kind of driven crazy by lies until it's kind of hard for him to know what is and isn't true anymore, so he's a little bit insane.
Yeah,
he's a little bit lost it. He's definitely someone you can put as up there with Bane as super evil. You can put him also, again, as kind of driven insane, maybe not even by his own lies, but by the lies of his followers, by the people who have exploited his domain. He's really bad, but you can put whatever reason for that you want in.
Yeah.
Danir is the neutral good god of writing. He's not that dissimilar from Azuth, god of wizards. We kind of have him spun in the same way. He's very wise, he's much older than most gods. He would be very trusted by Lathander to be kind of a neutral party, and very objective.
Him being a scribe, a stenographer type person.
Yeah.
Especially in the goings-on of the god world.
He just keeps track of things. Yeah, very much this kind of neutral party, in a lot of ways, follows along and kind of keeps track of things, records a lot of history, keeps track of a lot of that. Eldeth, the neutral good goddess of peace. She's generally, at least for our portrayal of her, she's generally just liked by everybody. Everybody just likes her.
She's one of those hard to dislike people.
Yeah. Even if you're an evil god, she just kind of keeps things so stable that it's hard not to at least tolerate her. Her followers are generally pretty well liked as well, because they bring so much calm. Their doctrine kind of requires it, that they bring calm and peace and stability to a situation. So that's kind of a nice touch to add to her and her followers.
Yeah.
I like her little emblem, the waterfall. I think it's kind of pretty. Gond, the true neutral god of craft. This is a great one for constructs that get religion, for Warforged, or depending on your setting, androids or AI or whatever you want to include. He's also, I kind of portray him as like this older, very wise, but more hands-on, very much getting involved with things. Obviously the god of craft, so likes to create. But the big thing I like to run him as is constructs that follow a religion kind of getting their first taste of religion by leaning into that, which I think is kind of a cool way to do that.
I really like Gond.
Yeah.
Just generally.
Yeah, I think he's a cool guy. He kind of pigeonholes himself into a specific vibe, but that's okay.
Yeah, sometimes
that's why there's a specific domain.
Yeah, a lot of gods are pigeonholed.
Helm, the lawful neutral god of protection. We kind of like him as a secret, asshole. That came up just as a part of our play, and we kind of got attached to it. He is Saloon's husband. That's canon, right?
I'm 99%,
okay.
Yes.
He has, apparently there's some sort of connection there, I think. We kind of like to play him as a jerk. You can not do that. That's just a weird quirk of ours. The reason we run that is kind of the god of protection. We kind of run him as very self-important, where he would more take care of himself above all else and put himself above others, as kind of a self-shielding thing, which is kind of where that comes in. He would more take care of himself and maybe his followers than really give a shit about anybody else. But obviously you can pretty easily play him as part of the good guys. You can associate him with Lathander and the god of justice, Tyr, and a bunch of other people that are generally the good guys. You can kind of do either of those things with him. You can kind of lean either way. Ilmater is the lawful good god of endurance. I love him. I think he's a super cool god to have to follow, whether you're a cleric to him or not.
Yes.
He's really, really big on self-sacrifice and kind of borderline martyrdom, making sacrifices in order to help other people and help the world as a whole. His clerics, his followers, are usually people that make great sacrifices, and so he kind of picks them up and takes them away and gives them power as kind of a reward for making those sacrifices. Sometimes even people who sacrifice their life, a cool way to do that is to someone who has died in service of other people, died protecting them or trying to help someone. He could be a cool god for someone to come back to reincarnate someone and give them another chance because of their great sacrifice.
Yes.
He's kind of quiet, he's kind of distant, but he is very... He's also the kind of god that I would personally run as very deeply connected to mortals and the mortal realm.
Yes, although quieter about it.
Yes.
Than someone people talk about later, but yeah.
Kelemvor is the lawful neutral god of the dead. He's the only dead god that's not evil. We have run him a lot of ways. Fundamentally, we like to play him as Sans from Undertale. I think it's funny.
Oh!
I think it's funny. Basically the vibe of shit sucks, people die, very kind of nonchalant about that, very accepting of the fact that life goes on, kind of a jokester, kind of a goofy guy who is not really fazed by a lot of the bad things that happen in the world because he's seen so many people die in so many ways, but can also definitely be spun as kind of a darker side of him where if you mess with the balance of life and death, he's gonna get real mad about it.
Yeah.
It is his domain, and to disrupt that and to take people from where they belong in death would make him very angry. So that's kind of why he falls into the neutral category in our minds. Lathander, hey, everybody basically knows this guy.
Yes.
He's basically the Christian god analog, which is it's fine. I don't particularly care a ton about that, but whatever. Neutral good, god of renewal, and light and birth and sunshine and all that stuff. Generally run as kind of the highest power, kind of highest authority in the Pantheon. Kind of like a king, but mostly just a leader figure. Like we were talking about earlier, we kind of play him as the straight man. He's kind of the normal one in the middle of a bunch of people who are either fighting or just generally being weird and kind of connecting with the world and each other in very weird ways. He's the normal guy. He's trying desperately to hold it all together all the time, is how we like to run him.
Yes. Very stressed out.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was about to say mom.
Yeah. He's the mom friend of the group.
Yeah, he's the mom friend of the Pantheon. He's also the king.
Yeah, it's fine. You can be a mom friend without being a mom. That's fine.
King mom friend.
Yeah. Yeah, we just play him as he's a good guy, but he's trying his best and he's stressed all the time.
Yes.
Lyra is the chaotic neutral goddess of illusion. We've run her as a friend to Kelemvor. We've run her as a friend to a lot of people. Illusion is fun. You can be kind of weird with it. You can run it as good. You can run it as evil. You can obviously run it as neutral. A lot of chaos involved in that.
Yes.
She is someone we would run as very chaotic and just generally all over the place. We've run her as mute, who communicates in illusory sounds and speech and images before, which is kind of cool.
And whether mute by choice or mute for other reasons is up to you.
Yeah, you decide.
You are such a trooper, pronouncing all of these gods' god names.
I don't know how to say them. I don't know anything. I'm gonna say this one is Lyra, which I don't know if that's right. I'm gonna look it up, and I'm not gonna. You guys can punish me for this in the comments if you want. Lyra is the chaotic good goddess of joy. She's the embodiment of the uwu emoticon. She's very soft. She's the kind of god that we would see as spending a lot of time in a mortal guise, just interacting with people and relishing in the joy of the mortal realm.
She looks at the mortal realm and says, "Is for me?"
Is for me? She just wants to go down there and hang out and have fun and enjoy that sort of thing. She wants to enjoy mortality whenever she can. Loviatar, I think is how you say it.
Yeah, evolves into Pupiotar in level.
Yeah, whatever level. Lawful evil goddess of pain. Evil, cruel. We kind of... that's another one that you can kind of run the way we run it. We've kind of run her as an ally and enemy of some of the other evil gods, kind of in equal measure.
I like a rivalry with Bane, to a degree.
They're fighting for how much they can make people sad.
Yeah.
Malar is the chaotic evil god of the hunt. It's kind of weird to me that what's up with that?
I don't get this one. I don't get why they're canonically evil.
Yeah. Why is Malar evil? We like to run them as non-binary.
Yes.
We like to kind of run them as very quiet, near silent, but has a very commanding presence. When they are present and when they want to communicate something, people will listen to them very closely.
They say few words, but the words they do say are important.
Yes.
I kind of vibe to go entirely off the wall for references of things, but it's something we've referenced here before. It's kind of something similar to like a Lyren type character from Ruby, for example.
Yep, very kind of attuned to the world is another thing I would say about them. Nature especially, animals especially because god of the hunt, but attuned to the world in general. Very much a silent observer a lot of the time, but gets involved when they have opinions and people will pay attention when they do that.
Yes.
Miliki? Or no, hang on, I skipped one, sorry. Mask. Miliki is next. Mask is the chaotic neutral god of thieves. This is a great god if you're a rogue that wants to be religious. This is the rogue god of rogues who does rogue things.
Or if you wanted to, like, have Vax's Raven Queen arc with something else.
Yeah, you could do that, yeah.
As the GM.
Kind of very non-judgmental, is kind of how we run it. Very attuned to the struggles of mortals. Obviously, a lot of people become thieves and do bad things because of circumstances in their life that require them to survive that way. So he is very non-judgmental, very kind of a patron of the people who are disenfranchised and who have to turn to that sort of life to survive. And he is kind of their supporter and very quiet and kind of background in a lot of ways. As I said earlier, because I skipped one, Miliki, neutral good goddess of forests. Very natural beauty, a little bit beauty in general. Kind of put her up there as one of the big good guys, up with Lathander. Very in tune with nature, very related to kind of the world, and very attuned to just basically the mortal realm. Doesn't visit it much, but is very in tune with it and deeply connected to it, and likes to focus on it a lot. Very much wants to preserve it. Merkul is the neutral evil god of death. I'm not quite sure how this is different from the god of the dead. I more interpret it as this is, I mean, literally what it is. Kelemvor would be the god of, like, dead souls, kind of relevant for passage to the afterlife. Mirkul is focused on death itself, is kind of the way that I would differentiate that. He can kind of be run as a darker alternate to Kelemvor, kind of maybe trying to disrupt that balance there.
Yeah.
Maybe a little newer to godhood, maybe a little bit of a target for stronger evil gods, especially because his domain is very important. Yeah.
I like that, the young, kind of.
Young, kind of inexperienced, but domain is very important, so can be kind of a target, in the same way that Auril was, to get in your corner early.
Yes.
As another god. Mystra is the neutral good goddess of magic. I like to run her as she likes girls.
Yeah.
In whatever fashion you want. She's definitely one of the most important gods because magic is so integral to the 5e setting and Faerun. But she's not part of the, like, good guys circle necessarily. She's more set apart and does things kind of her own way to keep things intact in her own setup.
Yeah. She's not part of, like, Lathander's inner
circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's in love with Saloon.
Yeah, we have one big, like, god ship, quote unquote.
And it's that one.
Yeah, Mr. Saloon.
Which I think is just cute. I don't know where that even came from. I just like it. I'm sure it came from some game we played at some point.
Yeah.
Ogma is the true neutral god of knowledge. Very learned and respective, like a lot of the other kind of knowledge magic gods that we've talked about. Very impartial, and kind of another good neutral party. Do not make him mad. Is kind of how we run him. As a god of knowledge, he knows a lot of stuff, including probably how to make everyone miserable if he so chose. Don't cross him because he is so important and so deeply entwined and entangled with the world and the information that the world holds. Savras is the lawful neutral god of fate. We run her. We've decided her.
Yeah.
Because we have run Vistani, who we attach her to as a god of fate. Kind of there's a heavy tie there in our minds, and because, at least in our headcanons, I don't know how true this is normally, seers, Vistani seers, are basically always female. We've decided that because of that connection, she should be a girl, or at least somewhere girl-aligned on the gender spectrum. We kind of run her as being trusted by all, basically as a kind of a final judgment, a final call, a final say in a lot of things, because she knows stuff. She sees things. She's kind of weird. Seeing a bunch of stuff that may or may not come to pass kind of makes you weird, by default. She sees a ton of stuff, she knows a ton of stuff, and that leads her to be, her judgment, very much trusted, but it also leads her to be kind of out there in personality. Saloon. Hey, we've talked about her a bunch. Chaotic good goddess of the moon. Romance! She's crushing on Mystra in secret.
Sorry, how was I was tired. They're not twins.
No. But they're siblings, right? They're connected.
Saloon and Shar, yeah.
Yeah, Saloon and Shar are siblings. Kind of a love-hate relationship there. Because we run Shar as so weird, Saloon is kind of her opposite, in how we run her. She's very prim and proper, she's very respected, she's very respectable, she's very serious. And then we run Shar, who's the neutral evil goddess of loss, as just such a weirdo. She spends a lot of time with mortals, she loves mortals, she's very deeply connected to anyone who has experienced a lot of suffering in their life. Because she understands that things are constantly changing and things are going to go badly to some degree no matter what, she likes to get her hands on that and basically do what she can to preserve the balance of things so that people don't have to lose more than they should. We run her as really weird. She copes with humor, for the amount of suffering she's seen. And she copes with just being such a weirdo out there person, that that it can make her hard to connect with, but it can also make her really lighthearted and open. And we run her as very open about her experiences and the suffering she's seen and the suffering she's, to some degree, had a hand in.
Yes.
So that's... I talked about her a lot earlier. She's weird. She's a weirdo.
We wrote weird on Sophris.
Yeah, and then we wrote weird bolded underlined text on Shars.
Yeah.
Sylvanus is the true neutral god of wild nature. Kind of run him as an outlander, very unlikely to intervene with a lot of stuff in the Pantheon, doesn't really care. Spends a lot of time in the mortal realm just vibing with creatures. Hanging out with animals in the woods and stuff. Very, like I said, kind of little care, kind of disregards most of the goings-on in the Pantheon. He will attend if he needs to, but mostly he just kind of vibes.
As wild as his subjects, basically.
Yeah. Just kind of out there and a little bit feral. Soon is the chaotic good goddess of beauty. She is beautiful. She appreciates beauty. She values beauty above all else. Which is not to say that she's obsessed with appearance. There's a great degree of inner beauty there that she cares about as well.
All kinds of beauty.
Yes. Deeply, profoundly interested in people whose souls are beautiful, is kind of how we run her. She, in our setting, would probably have several demigods, because sometimes beauty is very connotated with doing a lot of stuff.
Stuff that leads to demigods.
Stuff that leads to babies.
If you're a god, that is.
If you're a god.
It does not lead to demigods if you're not a god.
Yeah.
Usually.
The kind of person who hangs out on the mortal plane and just vibes with people. Very kind, very energetic and fun-loving. She's the kind of person who would go clubbing every night. And just hang out there. That's her natural habitat if she existed in the modern world. She can get very suddenly serious. She can take on that very serious mantle when she needs to, because she is so interested in the preservation of what is good and beautiful and important in the world. And she sees that in her own way, but she definitely sees it in a way, and she focuses on it very heavily. Talona is the chaotic evil goddess of disease. We didn't write a ton down about her. She's goth. She's super goth.
She's like the protagonist of My Immortal.
Yeah.
If you will.
Yeah, she's very goth, kind of a tortured soul. Deeply fucked up. Disease is kind of a miserable domain. She's very quiet. She doesn't super vibe with other people. Talos is another one that we've used frequently because you have a recurring character who you use in a lot of campaigns who is a demigod of Talos.
Yes.
Chaotic evil god of storms. We run him as a bitch, a little asshole, a little stinky boy. We run him as very aggressive, we run him as very evil. He is evil, so that's fine. There's a lot of chaos and intensity to storms, and we kind of run him that way. Very cruel, very intense, very disconnected, and doesn't really care about people. Kind of focuses a lot on efficiency and doing things quickly and effectively. Just getting what needs to be done. He will call down a hellstorm on someone if he thinks it needs to happen, and he will have no regrets about it.
Yes.
Tempest is the true neutral god of war. To him, war is not good or evil, it just is. It's a part of mortality, it's a part of mortal nature, in his mind, and whether there's a good side or a bad side, it just kind of exists. It's just a part of life to him.
Yeah, war just is.
Yeah. It's not that it's good, but it's also not that it's bad. It just exists. It's a part of life. He does not side with the extremely good or the extremely evil. He's a very good neutral party in that regard. Torm is the lawful good god of courage. Kind of running him as also in kind of Lathander's inner circle. Kind of a yes man to Lathander, but not necessarily in a bad way. He's just, generally they agree with each other and get on very well. As well as Tyr, who we'll talk about in a second. Timora, I don't know. Chaotic good, goddess of good fortune. Another person who would kind of love to go vibe on the material plane. Probably does gambling and just screws around with that.
Yeah, quite a lot.
Friends with Mistra is something we've run. We've run a lot of just random connections within the Pantheon. She's a little bit arrogant sometimes, a little bit cocky, but not in like a super bad way. She just has a lot of self-confidence. Maybe arrogance is the wrong word. She's very confident in herself, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And she likes to joke around. She's not mean about it. She's just very self-confident. Tyr is the lawful good god of justice, also very connected to Lathander, Torm, all those people. Very much a pillar of the Pantheon and the lawful good god.
Yes.
Like, if there's a god that defines lawful good, it's this guy. He is just, he is focused on justice. We like to run him as just to the spirit of the law, rather than, you know, there are plenty of laws that are made that are terribly immoral. He will hold up the law, but he will hold it up to the best of his ability to be just about it, and will not punish people unfairly if the law is cruel.
Yeah.
He holds to the law when it is used correctly, and people who use it incorrectly will incur his wrath. He is very, very stoic and very serious and very focused on upholding justice, and those who do the world an injustice will hear from him and not in a good way. We're almost done. Umberlee is the chaotic evil goddess of the sea. We run her as very close with Talos and equally kind of a bitch.
Yeah.
Very cruel and uncaring and distant. Creates chaos in the same way Talos does. Doesn't really care about mortals, doesn't really care about the world as much as she cares about her domain. And she will work with anyone who wants to preserve the intensity and the ferocity of the ocean and the world at large. Joaquin is the true neutral goddess of trade. She's weird and out there. She runs a little shop in the Pantheon.
Yeah.
She's like a little, like a trading post. She also probably runs several weird out there shops in the material plane that are kind of one of those things that it's like, if you go somewhere weird that you shouldn't be, you might just find one of her shops just out there. She just has stuff sometimes in really weird places. Also someone who's very unconcerned with mortal affairs, mostly visits the material plane and other mortal planes just to vibe and see stuff. More checking stuff out than personally interacting with anyone. So that's all the Faerunian Pantheon gods. There are obviously a lot of other gods. There's stuff like Lolth, there's stuff like the Dark Six, Asmodeus, people like Vecna the Raven Queen. They're not in the Faerunian Pantheon. We may talk about other gods later in a future episode of this. Sometimes they get caught up in fights with the Faerunian Pantheon. But fundamentally they're not the focus of this video. A lot of them have interactions with various people in the main Pantheon, though, which is something to consider when you include more out there gods in your games. There's just a couple of kind of final notes. Obviously, a lot of these gods have conflict with each other. A lot of these gods have very different views on things. One thing I want to note is, obviously the gods work as a pantheon sometimes, but it takes a lot to really get all of them working together. It would basically take a world-ending threat. Whether that's one god who has taken on too much power somehow, an alternate pantheon threatening the realm, literally just a doomsday scenario, anything that could feasibly end the world that requires divine intervention to do something about, that would be when most or all gods would actually bother to come together entirely. Yes. For preservation of their existence and the existence of the world that provides them with existence. Yeah, so that's kind of to wrap this up, just our final thoughts. TLDR, gods are weird. A lot of them differ from each other in pretty drastic ways. Alignment is kind of relevant to that. People with certain domains will definitely be weird and out there, and connect with the world. People with different domains connect with the world in different ways, just like mortals connect with the world in different ways, depending on how they see things and what they connect with. Tell us how you have run gods, especially if there are some more uncommon gods. I would love to hear your stories. We definitely want to hear anything you guys have to say about the deities. You can talk about non-Faerunian Pantheon gods in the comments if you want, that's fine. Just let us know your thoughts. Let us know what of our interpretations you may have enjoyed, what of our interpretations you may have disagreed with. Remember to like and subscribe. Subscribe because we're gonna have some other cool stuff coming up. The other Academy episode this week is about DMing for and playing as overpowered characters, and how you can run that without driving each other insane, both player and DM, in both directions.
Yeah.
Which is something that vaguely gets talked about in this video too, because demigods are a thing we run, and that's a very potentially overpowered thing. So we'll talk about some stuff here a little more in that one. Yeah, keep up to date by subscribing, like this video, leave comments, tell us your thoughts. We love you guys!
Thank you for watching this video from College of Lore. Remember to like this video, subscribe to join the party, and have a fantastic adventure.